The pyramids stand out in the distance from nearly everywhere in Cairo. 3 mountainous points looming on the horizon, growing seemingly organically from the ground, pointing skyward. But nothing prepares you for how utterly massive they are in person. During the day, you'll find hundreds of tourists walking around, taking pictures, riding various animals, taking pictures of themselves riding various animals. But we have a private tour of the Great Pyramid of Giza. When we come back in a bit, all the tourists will be gone and the place will be ours alone. Our first stop is the Sphinx. In a land of mysterious ancient monuments, perhaps none is more enigmatic than the Sphinx. It sits, paws extended, ever watching, a tireless sentinel in front of the pyramid complex. Now, normally, one can't get this close to the Sphinx. Close enough that we could remove a thorn from its paws, but here's the thing. We're here with Adventures by Disney. Adventures by Disney doesn't like being told where they can and can't go, and Adventures by Disney doesn't like lines, and Adventures by Disney doesn't like crowds. So while most people are stuck 100 feet away, relegated to their fenced-off, far-away selfie stands, with the mighty power of the mouse, we not only get to go down to the Sphinx, we get to walk all the way around it. I try and pretend I'm here alone. I walk slowly, taking in deep breaths, attempting to comprehend the scope of time, but I come up short. To feel the artistry that was carved and chiseled by a sculptor nearly 5,000 years ago is exhilarating. This is the type of place that no matter how hard you try, your mind can't comprehend or appreciate it enough. It's hard to describe the feeling. It is at once comforting and terrifying how long it's been here. The entire complex sits, a metaphorical kick in the face to the passage of time. It's oddly calming. If you can block out the throngs of tourists, the con men trying to sell you camel rides, and the motor coach buses driving noisily all around you, you can almost hear it. The distinct clang of tools, the murmurs of the workers, all working in tandem towards a monumental, unimaginable goal. An appeasement to the gods that no one prays to anymore. An extraordinary, unfathomable undertaking simply to house the tomb of one man. Now, it's all well and good to see them from the outside, but we are here to take a private tour inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Pyramid of Khufu. You know the pyramids. You've seen them in textbooks, in movies, and pre-framed photos at TJ Maxx. But what those photos don't get across is the feeling you get when you're standing in their shadow. The weight of feeling utterly inconsequential. The way the heat of the desert presses down on your skin, oppressive and unrelenting. The way the warm wind whips across your face, the same wind that has worn down the pyramids for the last 40 centuries. It is, more than anywhere I've been, a humbling experience. Okay, so this is one of my favorite ways to kind of put into context just how old the pyramids are. I'm going to try and draw it out for you here. So, say you're in New York City and you're looking at the Statue of Liberty and you're going by and you're like, wow, this thing has been here for like 130 years. That's so old. Then you go to something like St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican and you're like, wow, this was built in 1626. It makes the Statue of Liberty basically look brand new. Then you go back to something like the Colosseum in Rome and you're like, Wow, this was built in 80 AD, over 1,500 years before that basically brand new building of St. Peter's. So then you go back again to when something like the Odyssey was written, and now you're looking at something like the 7th century BC, so like another 700 years or so back. Now, imagine that the Great Pyramid was built 2,000 years before the Odyssey. The Great Pyramid was built and stood there for 1,000 years before King Tut. And then there was yet another 1,000 years before Cleopatra came along. Cleopatra lived closer to the time of cell phones than she did the pyramids being built. If you look at the year 0, more time has passed from the pyramids being built to the year 0 than from the year 0 to now. The mind absolutely reels. The base of the Great Pyramid of Khufu alone covers about 13 acres. It was originally 481 feet tall, but over time it's weathered and had its cap removed, and now stands at about 455 feet tall. For 3,800 years, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world. The pyramids were once encased entirely in a smooth-sided limestone, but over time it was worn away or taken away for use in other projects. A few areas still show what that would have looked like. It's big, like really big, and really, really old. And here I am, a small little morsel of a man here on this earth for a fleeting moment, standing in front of this monument of truly epic proportions. Man, the pyramids really make you think existentially. Just as advertised, no one else is here. We are completely alone. Well, as alone as 40 people can be when they're all together. And as a large Cairo sunset hangs in the air, we make our way inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu. So you're no longer allowed to bring in cameras to the Great Pyramid, and then they confiscate your phones as you're going in, so you can't take any photos or videos. So how do I get across what it was like being inside? I have a couple little photos that were given to me that I can kind of show you as I talk, but I could talk about this for an hour. I actually wrote down a huge summation of it, but I'm like, it would take me 20 minutes just to go through it all. So I'll write a blog and go into a lot more detail, but I'll just give you the quick little summation right now. So the first thing to remember is that the pyramid was not made to go in. Remember, it was built as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu, and once it was sealed up, you were never supposed to go back inside. Obviously that didn't happen. They think basically even the people who built it might have gone in and looted, and obviously all the treasures are gone, and they think it was the people who built it who did that. There's the main entrance, which is the one higher up, and as they laid Khufu to rest and the priests were leaving, they put 3 huge limestone blocks in the way so people could not go back in. You first walk in, and honestly, it feels more like you're like spelunking. It feels like you're going into a cave at first. You're kind of walking through a little bit, and then you get to the first area where there's a little kind of square tunnel going up. Now, again, people back then were much smaller, and it was never made to go in. So this is not necessarily the most tourist-friendly thing in the whole world. So it's a ramp that goes up at a decent degree, and I had to bend over at the waist in order to go up. So it's not very tall, but I mean, it's maybe 2 or 3 minutes, maybe not even that long, of sort of climbing up. Now, it's real small, you know what I mean? It's only a little bit of room on either side. We're going up one by one. Now, keep in mind, during the day, tourists are coming in and out all the time, and from what I've heard, you can actually be passing people in this little tunnel here. I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but it was already pretty tight, and you know, if you give you a little heebie-jeebies there. And remember, there's no airflow in here. There's no wind. It is stagnant air. It's humid, and you can taste the breath of everyone who's visited for the last 100 years. So you finally get up to the top of that tunnel there, and then you are in the Grand Gallery. And that was the thing I was most excited to see. It's this huge, long gallery, if you will, that again continues to go upward, and it's sort of stacked and it comes in little by little, and it's an arch going all the way up. And to think about how this was built 2,700 years BCE is just crazy. You can't fit a piece of paper in between these stones. They are so perfectly put together. I mean, even on the outside, they are perfectly fitted to each other. It's wild. So at least in the Grand Gallery, you have some height, and you can kind of, there are stairs on either side, you can kind of go up or down. So we're climbing up the Grand Gallery, and you get to the top, and there's this little area where you have to get on your hands and knees and crawl down a hallway. It's not super duper long, so you have to get on your hands and knees, you crawl down, and then you get to the King's Chamber, which is like right in the center. And it's this pretty massive room with a giant sarcophagus in the middle, and it used to hold untold treasures of King Khufu. There was so much in there. But now it's basically just a big, open, empty stone room, with the exception of the sarcophagus in the middle. Now, what's so cool about this sarcophagus is it is bigger than any of the tunnels or ways to get into the pyramid. Any of the entrances, it wouldn't fit, which means they built up the pyramid, put the sarcophagus there, and then finished the pyramid around it. It's this huge red granite thing. That is so cool to me. So we spend a few minutes up in the King's Chamber and just kind of try and take it in. You can touch the sarcophagus and just kind of be there. It was just such a cool feeling. And people kind of trickle out. They go back down the Grand Gallery. So I'm going down the Grand Gallery, and at the bottom, there's another passageway that leads to the Queen's Chamber. And so basically Mustafa was sitting there. He's like, if you want to go ahead and go back out, you can go ahead and leave. If you want to go to the Queen's Chamber, you can go there now. So I get on my hand. This is the smallest passage by far. You get on your hands and knees and you crawl through this relatively long passageway, and you get to the Queen's Chamber, and it's much smaller than the King's Chamber, which is the one up higher, but it's just as cool. And I was in there, and there's probably only, 3 or 4 other people in there, and they all kind of trickled out. I never thought I'd be able to ever go to Egypt, let alone see the pyramid, let alone go inside. And here I am, inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, in this room, completely by myself. It is silent. And it was just one of the coolest feelings in my entire life. So anyway, finally, reluctantly, I get up and go back down that passageway to get to the front. Jessica's standing there at the entrance kind of waiting for me. And so we walk back out and finally get some fresh air. And I stand there on top of the Great Pyramid for just a few minutes and just look out. We stand atop the Great Pyramid of Giza, looking out over a breathtaking red sunset. Sometimes you have things like this built up in your mind, and you just know that when you get there, it's going to be a life-changing experience. And then once you're there, it's a disappointment. This is not one of those times. This was life-changing. That is the Cairo sunset if I've ever seen one. That is the Cairo sunset of my dreams.
It really is. Oh my gosh.